Well, hey, Team Healthy. You know that I like to bring some special guests on my program for you. And today we have a person who, well, if we could, it might take the entire time just to list out his credentials, just simply because this guy has been around the block quite a few times. Bill Eddy, first, thank you for being here with us on our Surviving Narcissism channel and podcast. I'm so pleased to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much, Les. I'm glad to be on and talk about all of this.
Well, now let's kind of we're going to keep it brief if we can. You have quite a resume. You've worked in the past in as a clinical social worker, and then you also and you did that for a number of years, and you also got your law degree, and you've worked in the legal profession as a family practice lawyer, and then you've also established what you call the High Conflict Institute there in San Diego, California, which is where you live, and to say nothing about the fact that you've taught at Pepperdine and law schools all the way down in Australia. It's convenient that you're on the West Coast there for that, and then many workshops and consultations. So you bring a wealth of knowledge and experience. So just out of curiosity, what got you into this line of work, where you went from social work, legal, high conflict, and what was it about that was so appealing to you on a personal level?
Well, I think it all actually focused on conflict resolution. I liked resolving conflicts. I liked mediation. And when I was looking around for a career in mediation, I figured I'd go into social work. And there was a lot of family conflict I could work with, so I became a licensed clinical social worker, doing child and family counseling for 12 years. But because I really like conflict resolution, I noticed that lawyers were starting to do mediation, and I volunteered at a community mediation center in San Diego and realized, okay, I want to get some legal background here to help in conflict resolution. And in law school, I figured I should probably practice law in court for a couple of years. So I practiced in family court as a lawyer, but it turned into 15 years
Put in
because
that
I,
work.
yeah. But what I found is my background as a clinical social worker was totally related to family law because there was substance abuse, domestic violence, child abuse, personality disorders, all of this going on. And actually, most lawyers didn't really understand it or even recognize it. And so I found that I could contribute with that, but I also did mediation. So
Okay.
15 years in family court, and then throughout all this time doing mediation. So
Right. You've seen the ugly side, and you want
yeah.
to see good into it.
Yeah, and so what's interesting, I like conflict resolution, but I also am fascinated by these most difficult cases. And that's, I think, what got me into the high conflict work. And then in 2008, co-founded the High Conflict Institute, kind of putting all three of these, therapy, law, and mediation together. And it's turned out to really, be very helpful. And we've got a lot of stuff figured out that people want to know because it can calm these conflicts and make them easier.
You and I probably think alike. When I was in my practice, I would tell my colleagues and the admin staff that we had there, if you have a sloppy, messy case, I'll be more than happy to take it. Because there's so many layers to it, and you can apply your skills there, and hopefully in such a way that's going to take us to a good end. So sounds like you kind of have that mindset as well.
Yeah, there's some people like the hard stuff, and
Yeah.
I think, you and I are some of those weird people that go for that, but somebody's got to do
Yeah.
it.
Okay. When we finish this interview, my wife asked me about it, and I'll say, "Well, Bill called me weird." But anyway,
Uh-oh.
anyway, we'll go by that. Hey, now you've done a lot of writing, and your most recent book is entitled "Our New World of Adult Bullies." And I want to get some. There you have it, right there.
There we go.
We'll make sure that we have links to your information so that they can access all of that. And then also, by the way, you also have a podcast that you do with a partner. It's called "It's All Your Fault." Before we get into some of the stuff that you write about in your book, let's just kind of bring it down to the basics because we don't want to be too presumptuous. When you talk about people that are bullies, we all think that we know what a bully is, but what are we referring to?
Well, to me, the key characteristic is they have a drive to dominate other people. And this really stands out in a society where we're very much need to be interdependent, work together as equals, contribute something, but not try to dominate each other, but to collaborate and be equals. And so bullies really stand out and can catch us all by surprise because we think we're discussing a problem or an issue and they're trying to figure out how to dominate us. And so to me, that's the number one characteristic. But they also have, there's four characteristics that we've identified with high conflict personalities that drive a lot of court cases and family conflicts. And that's high conflict is people preoccupied with blaming others, a lot of all or nothing thinking, frequently unmanaged emotions, and extreme behaviors. They may do things that 90% of people would never do. So we've talked with High Conflict Institute about high conflict personalities for many years, but the most high conflict seem to be the bullies because of this drive to dominate other people. Yeah.
I have some notes sitting right here in front of me, and I jotted down my own thoughts about what I see when I think of that bully, and it runs right in parallel with what you have. Impulsive, demanding, impressed with dominance and power, victim shaming, which you mentioned, they blame
Yeah.
everybody else, easily annoyed, willing to ridicule, low regard for others, unique strengths, and lots of anger issues. And when I say lots, I mean like the poster child for it. And it's not always
Yeah.
men either. We often think of that as men, but it can be male or female. But anyone who's looking for that real strong power differential where I'm on the high end and you're on the low end.
Exactly. And that's a big feature of it. And most of the definitions talk about that there's a power difference or a perception of power
Right.
difference. So you may have coworkers, a coworker who bullies, and even I've heard the phrase bullying up, where you may have an employee bullying their supervisor.
Okay.
But there's a perceived power balance, and in those cases the employee sees themselves as superior to the supervisor, even though technically the supervisor is their boss. So
Yeah.
it actually can go in all of these directions.
I mean, it makes you shake your head, doesn't it? Now, in your book, our new world of adult bullies, you put a heavy emphasis on how social media has fed the mindset that says, these people are almost being admired, or it certainly enhances the notion that bullying is where it's at. I mean, what kind of thoughts do you share in that book relative to
I
that?
think, yeah, I think what's happening is that, and social media is now about 20 years old. Facebook came out in 2004, got started then. iPhones came out in 2006. So people have had in their hands an opportunity to see everything in the world. And what we see is there's a lot of competition for attention. And so in order to get attention, you show the worst behavior and it grabs your amygdala. It's like, oh, I got to pay attention to this. This is serious, extreme stuff, or this is funny or whatever it is. But it's grabbing your kind of more primitive brain, and that's been figured out. Social media companies have all figured that out, that they can bombard you with bad behavior and hold your attention on the screen. And so part of it's the design of social media, but part of it is that we would like to react fast so we can interact with our screen, with our phone, all that. And so something happens, we have an emotional response, and then we put that out there and other people have an emotional response to us, and it's much faster, and it doesn't leave us time to reflect. if you're reading a book, every once in a while you put it down and go, huh, now that's a new idea. I'll have to think about that. You don't have time for that with social media. It's like reply, reply, reply. And I think I think most people know the internet has shortened our attention span worldwide. But what we have to realize is social media has really made us more emotional and less reflective. And I think that's where bullies
Yeah,
come in.
you use a term, you call it high emotion media,
Yeah.
where even the look on a person's face or the loudness of their voice and the forcefulness is what really grabs people's attention, and it makes you I guess, a somebody.
Yeah, and attention is really the greatest currency today. And the people that get the attention are the people with the worst behavior. And that's really kind of backwards for a society. Um, a culture, a nation, civil society
Yeah,
needs people to respect each other. And yet bullies respect no one other themselves. Talk about narcissism.
yeah.
That's a big factor for most bullies.
Bill, are you familiar with the book Quiet by Susan Cain? Uh,
Yeah, I love that book, actually.
Well,
It's
I
a
do
great
too.
book.
Her subtitle is "The Power of Introverts in a World That Won't Stop Talking." And one of the things she talks about is, let's say you're having a committee meeting and there are 12 people in there. Typically, the meeting is going to be dominated by the three or four loudest people and most opinionated individuals. And the whole thesis of her writing is maybe those other individuals sitting there who can't get a word in edgewise might have something good to say. But to your point, it's like, no, the one that is most highly emotional and attention grabbing, that's the one who winds up getting that power. Talk about your thoughts there.
Yeah, well, actually, I read something about the brain research and what they found. I think it was Daniel Goleman, the emotional intelligence guy. He
Yeah,
started that. And what he said is that research showed us if you have a group of people without a hierarchy, there's no authority, they're equals, that the person with the most emotionally expressive face will become the center of attention. And I think that's what we see. And bullies have the most emotionally expressive faces. And so they grab our attention. And, there's the concept with narcissism that a narcissist sucks out all the oxygen from the room and takes it in just for themselves. So I think we very much do see this, and that we're not even aware of how we defer to the emotionally expressive people. And that reinforces bullying. And, it's an interesting other brain thing with this is the idea of brainstorming is an idea that's been around for 40, 50 years. You get a group of people together and you share your thoughts and come up with new ideas. Well, the research shows it doesn't work well in a group, that brainstorming in a group tends to defer to the loudest people, like you
right.
just said, and that more effective brainstorming, let's say you work in a division of a company and you're coming up with the name of a new name of a product or something, is it's better to have everybody individually come up with their ideas and then share them like through email or something like that,
Right, right.
and then have a meeting about it. But
Yeah.
if you start out with the group, you're going to filter out maybe the best ideas from the quiet people.
And that's exactly what that other book is about. So, what does the bully in that kind of scenario want or expect or require from the people who are on the receiving end of their behaviors?
Well, the bullies seem to like dominance, and so they want people who will follow them, do what they want, follow their whims, because they aren't smarter than everybody else. Some of them may be smart at a particular thing, but there's this drive to keep dominating people. And it's almost like that's the focus rather than to promote an idea and be in charge. Is the idea is they have to be the dominant person. Sometimes they have a great idea, And so having people listen to them, but they enjoy dominance for its own sake, is what I've noticed throughout all of these examples. And I think it's, to some extent, maybe part of the human gene pool that we have some people will come out to be leaders, and that thousands of years ago, all leaders really could do was get a lot of attention and enforce loyalty, but they didn't have science, they didn't have history, and so we just picked the most powerful person to lead us. And because when people work together, they're more efficient, more effective. So it seems like in the course of human evolution that we followed these people who were bullies because they were good at pulling us together and enforcing loyalty, keeping us together, but that they didn't necessarily have any particular goals except to, attack the next village and
Right.
grow.
Yeah, and make themselves stronger. Yeah.
So it's almost like a side effect of, people may have an idea, but if they have the bully personality more than anything, they just want to dominate people and hold them together.
Yeah, the notions, the ideas almost get lost because of their personality. And Bill, as you're speaking, of course, I'm thinking like a therapist because that's what happens. But these individuals bring a lot of psychopathology to the table, don't they? Beneath the surface, the way I put it is they're in pain, but they don't do a good job of pain management. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of the what's behind the scenes there?
Well, it's tricky because as a therapist since really 1980, even though I only practiced for 12 years, I really was trained with the idea that early childhood is the source of all our problems. And I think it's the source of a lot of problems. So many people you see maybe very abused in childhood learn the only way you're safe is to dominate other people. Then you know you're safe. And so I think for people with a horrible background that they, have carried that into adult life. But I also noticed something that I didn't start out with, and that is I think there's more of a genetic element, especially as a lawyer and studying antisocial personalities, where antisocial personalities, which is often the criminal population, highly aggressive, lies a lot, cons, risk taking, all of that, that this personality seems to be more genetic, so that first degree relatives of antisocials have a higher incidence of antisocial personality disorder than first degree relatives of the other personality disorders. And it got me thinking, historically, and some of the researchers and mental health researchers I looked at in putting my book together said these personalities may have done well in times way past. So thousands of years ago, a bully may have helped a group of people survive by pulling them together and leading them, in some direction, maybe fighting back against a bigger bully or moving the whole community to another whole community. So there may be, I think, a genetic element to bully personalities because some of the ones I've dealt with as a lawyer just seem to be bullies without any history of pathology, of abuse, and more kind of born this way. So I think there's a range of the cause of bullies, and I think it's not all psychopathology.
I happen to agree with you on that, and we could get way deep into the weeds on that one because I
Yeah.
think you're spot on with that. Um, I noticed another one of your books, calming upset people, with what
Yes.
you refer to as EAR. Uh,
Right.
when you're dealing with someone who has that proclivity, I know so many people in our audience are wondering, well, what do I do? when I'm faced with something like that. Explain what you mean when you talk about how you might be able to approach someone like that.
Yeah, so this is a method that actually I developed in 2004. So it's now 20 years we've had this, and I developed it doing a high conflict mediation where in reality the husband was a real bully and the wife was quite intimidated. There wasn't domestic violence, but he was a very verbal and disrespectful guy, and he started doing that with me in the mediation, and I was like, hang on. And I thought, I'm going to lecture him on treating me with respect. But I knew he was a narcissist. And I thought, that's not going to work. That's going to offend him. He's going to escalate.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, what did I know as a therapist? And so I thought, I'm going to give him empathy. And so I told him, I can see how important this issue is to you. And don't worry, I'll pay attention to your concerns. We have time, as much time as we need. And I threw in respect. I said, a lot of respect for your preparation, because he was a financial guy and we were deciding financial issues in the divorce. And he totally calmed down. I was actually surprised. And I started using that and then started teaching that in seminars. And people said they found it helpful. So it was a technique. We started calling it EAR statements, EAR statements, empathy, attention, and respect statements. So after someone could be angry in your face, or somebody could be dealing with somebody else. Somebody could be really sad and upset and in tears. And what we realize is this calms their emotions, that the feeling they're getting empathy from you. Even if they're attacking you, if you can do it, is say, I can see how upset you are. I can see how frustrated you are. I can see how disappointed you are. These kinds of things show some empathy, paying attention, because what we've learned is people that are angry a lot or high conflict people really want attention and they push everyone away. Yeah. So if you can kind of stay with them, and I learned a lot of this as a therapist, stick with them, then they calm down. They go, oh, you're listening. And respect, everybody wants respect, but often high conflict people get a lot of disrespect. People criticize their behavior, and understandably. And so they're defensive, and you say, I can respect your efforts. I respect the work you do, etc. They too calm down. So we've learned this as a method to help manage these difficult people, upset, angry people. And it really seems to work. And it's simple. Like I like to say, lawyers don't really like, I'm not paid to do empathy. And I say, just think of it as a technique. Think of a phrase that shows empathy. Yeah. And they go, okay, I can do that.
Particularly when you're talking to folks in that world, right? Yeah. Talking so many things flood my mind. You mentioned that with that one guy, it's like, well, I could just give him a lecture and just come at him with a dose of his own medicine. But the other side is, well, wait a minute, that means what I'm in the game then.
Right.
One of the things that I would teach people in my counseling office is the best way for you to be in control in those situations is quit trying to be so in control.
Yeah.
Because that's the game that they want you to play because they're good at it.
Yeah.
You come along and say, well, I don't feel the need to do that. In fact, I'll listen to you. You're completely throwing them off their routine. And then this is another weird paradox. That's where you get your power back. They want the power, but you get the power by not getting pulled into the power play in the first place. So, and it's easier said than done, and it requires a great deal of thoughtfulness and analytical thinking and self-restraint.
I think I learned that because early years as a therapist, I worked in a psychiatric hospital, and I worked part of the time on a unit with people with head injuries and people with schizophrenia. And what I learned is I've got to be super calm, super patient, and that emotions are contagious. So if I match their angry, upset emotions, they would just keep going.
Right.
But if I could just stay and they're going up and I'm staying here, that they come down and meet me emotionally. So I really learned to stay calm as a therapist. And people were surprised as a lawyer and mediator, say, how can you just sit there when they're being jerks? And I'm saying they're not going to be jerks for long because they're going to start mirroring what I'm doing.
Oh,
And next thing you know,
yeah.
there they are. They've calmed down.
Well, and what you are talking about is what I refer to as your own calm confidence. I
Yeah,
don't know what to do with that,
I
but
like that.
yeah, just I'm going to have calm confidence, calm firmness. You don't have to
Yeah.
be a wuss at all. Um, yeah. One of the things I think is essential, for us to understand, is these individuals don't trust. In fact, distrust is part of the currency they draw upon, and yet
Yeah.
you're basically, and what they want to do is they want to put it on you. They want to say, "Well, you're not a trustworthy person." They project
Right.
it into you, and so what I'm hearing you say is, "Well, if I'm the person reacting to this individual, but the bottom line is I do trust." And it starts with I trust me. I know
Yeah.
that I'm not what that person is depicting me to be. And so that becomes the beginning point then of being able to pull back with a certain kind of emotional detachment, even though they want to suck you in with that high emotion that you've talked about.
Yeah. And I think one thing I've learned, and this is like from being a therapist, is affirmations, is to give myself encouraging statements to play them in my brain while people are being obnoxious towards me. And one of the biggest one is, this isn't about me. It's not about me. And that helps me stay calm and also think about, what do I need to say now that's going to help calm them? Because I'm doing okay. I'm not taking this personally. And having seen so many people, like including people with schizophrenia, blaming me for like World War II and stuff like that, it's like, I don't have to get defensive about that.
Yeah.
And so learning, I don't have to take that, but then how to be assertive and say, this, and this in a calm voice. And I think that's one of the keys. People ask me, how do you respond to bullies? And I say, I like your calm confidence. I like that phrase. But just, keep yourself calm and then look at, what do I need to calm the other person? And I think often you can.
Yeah. And it's so difficult because, like you say, if you're not a trained person like yourself or myself, it's so easy to let them establish the pace. And so one of the things we say is don't let a narcissistic bully establish your pace. Know who you are. Um, is what we're talking about, is this possible for the average Jane or Joe out there who's dealing with somebody, whether it's at work or in their family of origin or organizations? Is it possible for people realistically to take the mindset that you're talking about and truly applying it in a successful way?
I think at a simple level that it is, and this is what I teach people now, and our High Conflict Institute, we teach people, is basically to be assertive. So if a bully is talking down to you, is to just think of a real simple sentence that you can say, something like, cut it out, or that's enough, Joe, or that's not necessary, Jane, or something that's just a short statement that firmly states that's not okay. It's not accusatory. It's not starting a fight. It's ending a fight in many ways. So if it's safe, is to just have an assertive sentence that you
Okay.
say. Now, if it isn't safe, get out of the situation. We think of domestic violence. I don't want to teach people to give ear statements to people that are beating them up.
Right.
Don't worry about how to phrase something like that. Find out a way to get away
Right.
whenever you can. So I think ear statements is, if people can practice them, get comfortable with them, but you don't even need an ear statement. You just have a firm one sentence that says, this isn't okay. Um, and one, I was talking with someone yesterday, and he really liked when I said, "That's not necessary."
Yeah.
That's a really easy thing to say, and no one has to be defensive. It's like, that's not necessary.
Yeah.
And bystanders can do this too. They say, "Joe, that's not necessary." And you distract Joe from his bullying and realizes there's other people that don't like what he's doing. Maybe I better stop. So that's easy.
There's something that you mentioned, and it's again runs parallel with where I am with people, and that is along with the empathy and the attention, you want to maintain a mindset of respect.
Yeah.
And I used to do anger workshops, and
Uh-huh.
one of the things I would talk about is I can actually give you respect even when I don't feel it. And
Mm-hmm.
in other words, my capacity for respect is not about you; it's about who I am from the inside out. And most people find it very difficult to maintain a respectful mindset, knowing that they're in the presence of such an insulting, condescending person. And yet, what you're saying is, well, but that's me claiming my power. That's me claiming
Right.
my freedom, and I choose to be a person of decency. That's easier said than done, but I think it's necessary for us to remind ourselves, no, I'm in charge of me and I stand for decency.
I think that's the key point is how you manage yourself. I like what you're saying. And that's such a great message to people. If you can manage yourself, you're going to influence the other person. I like to say that managing your own anxiety is the secret to managing high conflict people. Because when you're not anxious, it's hard for them to keep being escalated.
Right. Well, and it's going back to you're not playing the game.
Yeah, yeah, and they don't know what to do, and they're almost. I find people are disoriented. I give them an ear statement. They're like, "What? What? What'd you just say?"
Let me do. Let's fight. Like, no, I
They
don't.
don't know how to not fight, and
Yeah.
that disorients them. And then they often resign themselves to maybe you're going to have a decent conversation.
Yeah, yeah. It's a combination between having empathy. I understand
Yeah.
that you feel certain ways, but also objectivity. I know that there's a lot of turmoil that you're drawing from, and I don't have that same turmoil that I have to draw from, and so I'm going to stay objective, even as I'm having an understanding spirit. And that's a really delicate line to be able to walk, but I think it is possible.
Yeah, I really think working with people with head injuries and people with schizophrenia really helped me from early in my career because I really don't take it personally. I go, this person has a problem.
Yeah.
And how can I help them manage themselves? How can I help them calm themselves? Because they really lack these skills.
Yeah.
And I can't argue with them and I can't criticize them to get them to behave. That doesn't work. It's like the empathy, the calmness, that's what seems to really work, as well as setting limits and saying that's not okay.
Okay.
Or I'm going to end this conversation if you keep talking to me that way. That's something that you can do in a calm voice.
Bill Eddy, you were talking so much sense, and as I'm listening to you, it's like, man, I wish there were more people that could think and process this way, and that's what we're trying to do here in the discussions we have, and you've spoken into this so eloquently. Uh, Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to share your thoughts with our audience.
Well, thank you, Les. I really enjoyed this discussion. I think we're very much on the same wavelength. And if we can pass this to other people, I think it will help them because I believe that bullies' presence is increasing in society. Even if their numbers aren't, they're getting louder and more at the center of society.
Yeah.
So people are going to have to learn how to deal with
Oh,
them.
and we could go on and on about how this is in our political minds, discourse now, and businesses, and even our entertainment industry and what is thrown at us out there. So there's just so many different prongs to this thing. So anyway, thank you so much for speaking into this. Team Healthy. The name of the book is Our World of Adult Bullies. Our new world of adult bullies.
Mhm.
Bill Eddy is our guest. So support him by checking out that book. Yeah, and remind us of your podcast now. What is it?
It's called It's All Your Fault.
Yeah.
and it's managing high conflict people. So it's very much the same general topic.
Yeah, you got good stuff on there too. So, okay. Well, once again, thank you and Team Healthy. Thank you for being a part of our time here today, and I will see you all next time.